Apologies for a small delay, but now everything will be, I think, on time. My name is Ewa Kocińska-Lange, and I'm a director of the National Center for Research and Development office in Brussels, which is cooperating with the Business and Science Poland here in Brussels. And as such, we are delighted to have today with us Bart Biebuk, who is the Executive Director of the Fuel Cells and Hydrogen Joint Undertaking. And together with Bartek from Business Science Poland and Bart from Joint Undertaking, we will launch today Brussels Talks. So this is an event powered by NCBR office in Brussels and BSP, and this will be a series of events. And we will talk always about some very hot topics that are here on the agenda in Brussels. And we want to share this with you. Most of the participants are from Poland, obviously, but not only. And I hope this 1 hour with hydrogen today will be quite informative for you and inspiring for future works linked with that. But before I will go into more detail, I still would like to tell you a few words about the technical issues so you could use the platform efficiently. So first of all, this is a webinar mode of Click Meeting. It means that you can communicate with us only via chat. And so if you want to ask a question or put a comment, please use the chat. You are already doing that, so that's already very, very good. We will observe this and react, and also in the second part of the event, we will answer your question, or more specifically, Bart will probably answer your questions. And thank you also already for questions that you've sent in advance of the event. We will also take care of them. And one more technical thing, the window that we are in is movable. So in order not to have the window on the main screen, you can use a small square button that it's in the bottom in the right corner, and when you click on it, the window is moving at the top of the chat. So I think that's quite useful to do. Okay, from technical part, I think that's everything from my side. If you have some more technical issues, please put them in the chat. And I will now still give a floor for a few minutes to Bartek to say hello. Bartek is a managing director of BSP and my colleague from next door. Bartek.
Hello everybody. Thanks for having me and for letting me to co-host this event. I'll try to provide business-related perspective to this event. Perhaps I will limit myself to this introduction for the moment, because at later stage I understand that I'll have a few minutes to introduce where we are in terms of the Polish hydrogen strategy and the business perspective, and of course I have a few questions to ask to Bart as well. So thanks for organizing this, and thanks for having me.
Okay, great. So without further ado, I will now give the floor to Bart, and your slides are already on. So thanks again for finding time and for joining us. As I said at the beginning, we are very happy to have you here with us, and we are very eager to hear from you what's happening with hydrogen at the moment. In general, not only in Brussels, but Brussels is a kind of a key player here, I have a feeling. Okay, Bart, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Eva and Bartek, for the introduction and for having this webinar of this series. And starting with hydrogen, I think is definitely the right choice, because as you said, hydrogen is very hot also in Brussels. It's very high at each political agenda. And why is that? It's very simple, because it is one of a key measure or technology to reach the ambitions of the Green Deal. We all know the Green Deal has been set for 2050 to become that Europe should become the first continent to become carbon neutral. And we know that this challenge is huge. And in the meantime, I think all the models, the analysis, the simulations that we have done is that hydrogen will play an enormously big role, 20 to 24% probably. Hydrogen will contribute to the decarbonization pathway. So without further ado, let's go to the next slide, which is a slide that just shortly to explain a little bit for those who are not yet familiar with the fuel cells and hydrogen joint undertaking. Well, we are a public-private partnership, and we have 3 partners. One is Hydrogen Europe, which is the industry grouping. It's an association. They have now more than 270 members, but very important here, it's 50% are SMEs. So we are by definition a sector which has a lot of SMEs, and I have to say that actually a lot of innovation comes from the SMEs, so it's nice to see that. On the other hand, we have the other partner, which is Hydrogen Europe Research. It's a separate association, different bylaws, completely different board as well. They just use the same logo to show that they are kind of brother and sister, but it's a very different association. They have now, and actually I have to update my slide here a bit, but they are on nearly 100 members now. So you see really they are growing fast, both associations. And then in the middle we have the European Commission with 3 DGs, DG RTD, research of course, then DG NR for energy, and DG Move for transport. And they are a very important partner, of course, because they are putting the cash money on the table in order for us to support research and innovation projects in the Union. And so far we have supported 285 projects for a little bit above 1 billion euro. And since this is a PPP, also the private side put it more than 1 billion euro in, so like a euro for a euro. So that means in the past 13 years, or since 2008, we have now spent more than 2 billion euro in projects. Projects concerning energy, production, distribution, transport, but also cross-cutting, which is more like transversal matter, but it's about standardization and safety and so on. Okay, next slide, please. A little bit zooming into Poland and what kind of activities we have supported so far in Poland. So we have supported with 3.6 million euro. We have 16 beneficiaries in Poland, and they joined from this 285 projects, 27 projects were joined by a Polish beneficiary. What you can see here quite well is that mainly Poland is participating in the research area and not yet very much into the demonstration. And I hope that in the next period that I will announce very soon, that also we can see Poland more in the innovation part and not only in the research part. Okay, you can see there the projects. If you are interested, you can always go to the websites to get more about it. But also, it's quite good that, let's say, Poland have also started recently to work very hard on hydrogen, or from a policy point of view. You can see there the intentions by 2034 to have 2 gigawatt of hydrogen capacity, by 25 to have a half a gigawatt, to have 500 hydrogen buses. There are some plans for hydrogen refueling stations, although not so high, only 2. So I think we need to try to get more hydrogen refueling stations in Poland. But I think the good point is that Poland is also on the way forward with hydrogen. I mean, I have to say that this was not the case, I would say, 5 years ago. And I'm happy to see this positive move in Poland. Next slide. Everything started a little bit in 2019 when we launched the first study on when we made it a hydrogen vision for 2050, where we clearly said, look, we want to know what hydrogen can bring by 2050. And that's where the first numbers came out. I mean, 24% of final energy demand in 2050 can be delivered through hydrogen. We have 820 billion euro annual revenue, so very good for the GDP, and can create 5.4 million jobs. That was significant. And that is where Europe or the Union also started to realize. They say, okay, we have to do something with this. Next slide, please. Looking a bit to a shorter time frame, 2030, what we have done is we have analyzed all the national energy and climate plans of each member state plus the UK. You can find for each member state the analysis there on our website, so please do not hesitate to go there. But looking at Union itself, by 2030, okay, depending on the scenario, because we have a high kind of a high ambition scenario and a business as usual scenario. But if we look to the high ambition scenario, we can put 56 of gigawatt electrolyzed by 2030 in Europe, and we will create around 30 billion euro of added value and 360,000 jobs. Okay, next slide. And that led finally to the European Hydrogen Strategy on the 8th of July, which exists out of 3 phases. The first phase is by 24 to put 6 gigawatt of electrolyzers on the field, creating 1 million tons of renewable hydrogen, mainly to replace the gray hydrogen. Then the second phase is by 2030 to put 40 gigawatt of electrolyzers in the field, creating 10 million tons of renewable hydrogen, looking to new applications like steel, heavy duty, but also grid balancing services. And then beyond 2030, we believe that the technology will be matured and can really be deployed at large scale. These 3 phases will really be supported by the Clean Hydrogen Alliance, because the alliance has to make an EU investment agenda. Next slide, please. And here in this slide, I will explain you what is the European Clean Hydrogen Alliance. It was also launched at the 8th of July, and today this alliance has more than 1,000 companies. Just to give you a comparison with the Battery Alliance, there are 300 companies there. So we have now in this alliance more than 1,000 companies, which shows, or which is a good indicator of the huge interest in hydrogen and the enormous potential that hydrogen has to create jobs and growth. The alliance will really create this kind of project pipeline to reach the objectives I have mentioned, and they involve really all the stakeholders, so really the supply and the demand, because this is very, very important. And we estimate that to reach the 2030 goals, around 430 billion euro needs to be invested, and this will be done together privately and publicly. Of course, privately much more than publicly. They organize themselves in 6 roundtables. You can see them there. Each of these roundtable is chaired by a CEO. So it's really CEO or vice president level kind of discussions, because that's also the level who can take decisions. Next slide. So coming back to the to the hydrogen and the R&I part. So the Commission has made a proposal to continue the hydrogen research and innovation part in the next partnership under Horizon Europe. The goal here is really to maintain and strengthen the European global leadership role, because I clearly want to state here that Europe is leading in this technology, and so we need to keep it and even build further on it. That's why they proposed a new partnership, which will be called the Clean Hydrogen Partnership. So it's not FCHJU anymore. I think probably in November or December we will cease to exist, and we will be called the Clean Hydrogen Joint Undertaking. The budget has increased. I mean, we will have a budget increase of 50%, so it will be 1 billion euro for the next 7 years. And there you can see also an indication how we will launch our calls. So normally the first call should be by the end of the year. Well, depends a little bit when the Single Basic Act will be voted for by the Council and the Parliament. So normally 150 million euro end of this year, maybe beginning of next year. And then by summer next year, another 150 million, and then each January we go on. But you can see clearly here that we do a huge front loading. This is because we have this ambitious goal in 2024 of the 6 gigawatts, so we really need to front load our program. In terms of the contents, we have 3 pillars. So one will be hydrogen production, one will be hydrogen distribution, the other one will be end use. On the distribution side, that's really something new for us. We have not worked a lot on that, so we will really work now on large storage, on pipelines. We will transport pure hydrogen, but also on road transportation of liquid hydrogen, for example. We also will work on hydrogen refueling infrastructure for heavy duty, then like trucks and maritime aviation. When we look to the end use, there we focus mainly on heavy duty trucks, trains, aviation, waterborne, shipping. Also for the heating and cooling area or power area, we look at turbines and hydrogen burners, which is new. And then, of course, we will continue with the industry. Also, we will continue with hydrogen valleys. I think I will talk a bit about that a bit later. The cross-cutting remains, but also you can see we will focus on the supply chain, which is slightly new because we really need to make sure that also tier 2, tier 3, tier 4 suppliers are ready to provide the new parts that the industry needs. Hydrogen will not be anymore solely handled by us. There will be 7 partnerships in the Horizon Europe that will deal with hydrogen. Of course, we are the only partnership that purely works on hydrogen only. So we are a kind of mother partnership for all the others, because we have Process for Planet for the chemical side, 2.0 for transport, waterborne for the maritime, steels, Clean Sky, and E-Rail. They all have parts of their program dedicated to hydrogen. The way we see it is that in our partnership, we are preparing the building blocks like the stacks, the tanks, and then it's up to Clean Steel, Clean Sky, E-Rail to input them into the let's say into their applications. In the next partnership, we also will have 2 advisory bodies. One is the one that we know very well already, the States Representative Group, where each member state and associated country can designate a person to this body who will advise us mainly to see if our work program is a bit in line also with their national work program, and see where we can have synergies or kind of coordinated goals. A new advisory body will be the stakeholder group. We had in the past the scientific committee. This one we asked kindly to the Commission not to have anymore, because as you remember in my first slide, we have the research association as a partner. So in that sense, it's no need to have the scientific committee, but we replaced it with the stakeholders group. Hydrogen is now very transversal. We have a lot of stakeholders, can be used in so many different applications. That is why it's good to have different a stakeholder group where we have the different sectors on the table to give us some advice also on our worker program. Also there, the regions will have a place as well to play. Okay, next slide. So synergies, I have mentioned already. There's a lot of synergies now that we need to look for. It's new buzzword in the European Union and Brussels. Everything is now about synergies. But if you look about on all those different programs and instruments that you can see in this chart, so there are so many, and they all will deal with hydrogen. So a good coordination will be key. It's still a bit of a concern for me as a coordination, because now I see all over the union, because it's probably hydrogen is now so hot, is that everybody's starting with some projects and some initiatives on hydrogen, but still I want the union or the Commission to really start do a better job on the coordination, to be very honest. On the other hand, we have also other instruments. We have the Connecting Europe facility, which is mainly about hydrogen refueling stations, so infrastructure-wise. Then we have the Innovation Fund, which is really there to help companies to scale up. For example, if you have a electrolyzer company which has an annual production capacity of 100 kilowatt, to help them to go to a gigawatt scale factory. We have the IPCEI instruments, which is more, it's not really money behind, it's a regulatory framework where basically national governments can then bypass the state aid rules and then invest or fund or give subsidies to companies much more than what they are allowed to before due to the state aid rules. And now we have also the Next Generation EU, which is this recovery fund that was announced by the union. And I have very good news is that we saw a lot of hydrogen projects in the Next Generation EU. So I think up to 10 billion euro of projects have been mentioned there. Next one. Next slide. So as I mentioned already, the Hydrogen Valley. So back in 2016, we started with the initiative on hydrogen valleys, well, basically first with the regions. We started to work on regions. We had more than 100 regions that we are working now with across Europe. And in 2016, that cooperation led actually to 3 separate initiatives. One was the European Hydrogen Valleys Partnership. These are like 40 regions that assembled themselves in this partnership. Really, these regions see that they can create a lot of jobs, a lot of growth with hydrogen technology, and they wanted to go faster. And that's why they grouped themselves in this partnership. Then we have some regions that are not yet so well matured on their projects. For example, I mean, you can see then a couple of examples on this map. That's why we launched actually for those regions the Project Development Assistance Program, where basically we pay a consultant to help those regions to mature their project and to a point that the project is then ready to be submitted to various other financial instruments on European level, national level, regional level. And it was such a huge success actually that the second part of this year after summer, we will launch another project development assistance program, but really focusing on the EU 13. And that's also where I hope to see several regions of Poland to apply for projects. And then the third task or initiative that came out of this region's discussions was we should create a hydrogen valley in Europe. A bit similar like we have the Silicon Valley in the US. And that was also great to see that last year in the State of Union of Ursula von der Leyen, our president, she said that in the Next Generation EU, she would like to see more hydrogen valleys being developed. And I'm happy that she mentioned that, and it's now up to us to realize that vision that she has. Next slide, please. Today, we have already a couple of examples of hydrogen valleys in Europe. We started first with the Big Hit project that was in the Orkney Islands, north part of the UK. There we basically produce hydrogen on the islands. We bring it on shore then to be used in cars or to recharge the vessels. It was a very nice start. It was like a blueprint for really a hydrogen valley. And then we made a call for a region to become the real first hydrogen valley in Europe. And finally, the North Netherlands won that call. What is very important in the hydrogen valley, it's really it's important that you understand that is this sectoral integration approach. So we want to see that all the sectors like transport, industry, heating and cooling, production, storage, that this is really an integrated approach that is demonstrated in a region. And then after that successful start in the Groningen, because they are making this hydrogen valley, they are working on it. We said also it would be good to have a first hydrogen island. And in January, I signed a grant to the island of Mallorca in Spain with the same concept. Again, this integration approach. So the different sectors on the island will work together to realize the first hydrogen island. And of course, we will not stop there. We will continue with more hydrogen valleys across Europe. And you will see that in the next call. We will have again a topic on cross-border hydrogen valleys, because now you can see that those hydrogen valleys are all kind of in one member state. We want to have cross-border hydrogen valleys now. Next slide. So hydrogen valleys did not become only a European kind of phenomena, but also became a global phenomena. We have in the Mission Innovation program, which is basically started back in the Paris when the Paris climate goals were agreed. At that time, Mission Innovation started, and we have managed to get a hydrogen challenge on that, and in that program and in the hydrogen challenge, basically we developed this global hydrogen valleys platform. You can go to the website there. We can see that we have 34 valleys in 19 countries across the globe. And the idea is, of course, to learn from each other. And by learning, we can speed up the transition. We have now more than 3,500 data points in this website. We have 10 in-depth best practices profiles analyzed and displayed. And we just at the beginning of June, during the Clean Energy Ministerial in Chile, we announced that we will continue with the hydrogen valleys, and actually all the mission innovation countries that joining the hydrogen challenge, they committed to build 100 hydrogen valleys in the world, and each country that is part of the mission innovation on hydrogen challenge committed to put 3 hydrogen valleys inside their country. So it's very nice to see that something that was really invented in Europe finally now goes global. Next slide. We also work very hard on the electrolyzers. You can see that the past 10 years we moved from 150 kilowatt or 100 kilowatt to nearly 100 megawatt. So really in 10 years time we increased times 1,000 times. So gradually over the years we pushed the envelope to I mean megawatt scale and multiple megawatt scale, and in the last Green Deal, European Green Deal call, we received 16 proposals. We have a couple of winners. Very nice projects will be announced very soon. But now in 100 megawatt, we also know that in the next 10 years we need to go to gigawatt scale. That's why we will really support in our next program to build these standard modules, 10, 20 megawatt modules that really can be used then to go to the gigawatt scale. We will also further look into replacing materials like iridium, for example, and further reduce the cost for the production. Next slide. We will continue to develop the European-wide guarantees of origin scheme. I mean, we have worked on that already since 2014. First to set up a definition, then to do these pilot plans. As you can see here, 4 pilot plans were selected to make these guarantees of origin. We have now more than 70,000 GEOs already issued. And now the next action that we just started was Certified 3, and where basically from the learnings of these 4 pilot plans, we roll it out all over Europe. We do this together with the AIB, the Association of the Issuing Bodies. So every country have an issuing body, and they assemble themselves in this association, and together with them, basically, we try to allow across Europe that platform. It's mandatory. By the end of the year, each member state should have such a GEO scheme in place. Also, at the global level, we work with the IPHE, which is the hydrogen, where basically we agreed that we need to work on a common methodology across the globe on how do we calculate the CO2 footprint for each hydrogen production method, because we can produce hydrogen on several pathways where we need to agree on a common methodology, so that green hydrogen in Australia is also green hydrogen, for example, in Europe. And so this kind of methodology is crucial to unlock future cross-border trading. Next slide. We're not only working on energy, but also on transport. You can see the different, let's say, applications that we will work on in the coming years. So next slide, please. We have worked a lot on hydrogen refueling stations, and you can see we have actually a database now, actually running on a server here with us, where basically each hydrogen refueling station across Europe is connected to, and we can track real-time time availability information. So if you go to that website, and also later on you will have an app, you can see whether the HRS is open or in maintenance mode. You can see if it's available for car refueling or buses or trucks and so on. So it's a very nice tool, and it gives a certain, let's say, peace of mind for customers of hydrogen cars, that they know that the station will be open if you look to that. Next slide. We have funded since 2009 a lot of projects for city buses. What we have managed was to reduce the cost from 1.8 million to 500,000 euro cost of a city bus. We know that once you order 100 buses in one go, for example, the city of Essen in Germany have now done that you can reach really a number which is even cheaper than a battery bus. The 2 big projects, Jive and Jive 2, has the aim to put hundreds of buses now on the road. We are on the way to deploy that. Very important is that we have now 5 suppliers in Europe already. And with this Jive and Jive 2 projects, basically we triggered a lot of interest also other suppliers now, as you can see in the slide. So it's really good now that we really built that competition, and with competition, of course, costs will go down. In our view, city buses are done. It's not for our program anymore. I mean, after we finish the Jive 2 project, which is still running, but once it's done, we will really now focus on coaches. Coaches, they have different challenges. I mean, you need to keep a lot of space inside the coach. They are a little bit higher as well. So we just started the first project now for coaches. Is the coach high feet, where we will put 6 coaches on the field, 3 for intercity and 3 for long distance passenger transport. So it will be interesting to see how that one goes. Next slide, please. When we look then to trucks, I mean, we have now 2 first projects to build prototypes and to show it in the field, these prototypes. One is H2 haul, it's 15 long haul trucks. 2 configurations, tractor and rigid configuration. They will be used with real customers, and we will see them this and next year to be deployed in the road. Then we will have also the project Revive, which has 15 refuse trucks. This is a bit of course different mission. They have every day. They have back to base kind of missions. Here we focus a lot on standardization, and we have the first truck already being deployed in Breda in the Netherlands. What is important is that by these 2 projects, at least 30 trucks will be shown or will be demonstrated in 13 sites in 7 countries. And also, end of last year, the industry committed to build 100,000 trucks and 1,500 HRSs by 2030 in the EU. Next slide. We're not only working on demonstration, but also on the components and the infrastructure for trucks. That's why we have just launched a project to increase durability lifetime of the stacks. We need to go for 30,000 hours. Also, we are looking into standardization of these modules. The idea is just basically that each OEM can then select from the supplier they want to, but that all the connections and everything or the space that is necessary is kind of standardized. And for that, we're working together with all the fuel cell suppliers in Europe and the OEMs. Finally, we also try to scale up the hydrogen refueling stations, because for trucks to refuel, they need more hydrogen in a shorter time. So we need to have the technology, so new compression technology. So that's also a project that we have. Finally, we also start to look on liquid hydrogen, because we see that some of the truck OEMs will move to liquid hydrogen, which is of course better for the density. Next slide, please. And it's not about only technology, but also on the standardization of refueling protocols. So you might know that for refueling a car worldwide, we use the same protocol, but for trucks, we have not yet agreed on a common protocol. So that's why worldwide with Japan, the US, we work together in the project Pride that we are funding really to agree on a common protocol. That will help to accelerate the introduction of hydrogen trucks, but also reduce the cost for the OEMs to build them. At the same time, last year we also launched. We released the outcome of our study on the business models for hydrogen trucks, and there you can see, if you open then later on the study, you can see the link there, that the TCO for the trucks are really very, very good, better than the other technologies. Next slide. We also work on rail. You know, of course, that there are already some projects on rail in Germany, but this one is a bit a different type of project. This is a combination of catenary and no catenary. So what it means is that when the train is moving from a catenary to a non-catenary, that basically there the fuel cell jumps in and gives power to the train. We will do a first project on that in Spain with Renfe and CAF, who is part of this project. What we are doing now is try to identify the right size, the location in Spain, and then based on that calculate the right size of the stack that we need. Next slide. On maritime, a little bit of a similar story with the electrolyzers. So we really pushed continuously the envelope on the capacity of the fuel cells, where in 2013 we were at 50 kilowatt. We have pushed it, and now I just signed a grant for a 3 megawatt roll-on roll-off vessel with liquid hydrogen. So we really go here into the multi-megawatt area. Important to mention is that we see that this 3 megawatt is the kind of level which is good for inland waterways, for ports operation or short sea vessel operations, ferries, and so on. Once we really go, and then this is combined with pure hydrogen, then be it gas or be it liquid. And then when you go really to deep sea vessels, there we will see other carriers coming in, which is anyway hydrogen based. So they always need hydrogen at that time, but it could be ammonia, it could be methanol, and because there you will see the fuel cells requirement of 20 megawatt, and we have a plan in the next joint undertaking together with the partnership Waterborne to go in that direction. Next slide. We also, at the beginning of June, launched the Global Ports Hydrogen Coalition under the Clean Energy Ministerial. You can see that there are 12 European ports raised their hand to work globally together to identify the barriers that we have for hydrogen in ports, and also to identify how much would be the volume and so on. So basically to work together on decarbonization of ports areas using hydrogen. We have one project which is running in the port of Valencia, H2 port, where basically we do some first demonstration of these special vehicles that they have to put them on hydrogen. And of course, all the knowledge that we learn will fly into the Global Ports Hydrogen Coalition. Next slide, please. Also, we work on aviation. We launched a study last year with Clean Sky, which is another joint undertaking. The conclusion was that hydrogen is feasible in aviation. Up to 40% of all the planes by 2050 could be propelled by pure hydrogen liquid format. We see recently the announcement of Airbus, which is very aggressive on hydrogen for aviation. Also, France said that they want by 2030 for a commercial flight by using hydrogen. You can see you can see there an example of a potential plane. I have to say that we are working very strongly together now with Clean Aviation and ourselves to make a roadmap. So we have defined a roadmap, what needs to be done by when, in order to build the prototype by 2028 that can take off somewhere from an airport in Europe propelled by pure hydrogen. It's really our ambition here. Next slide. Also, we have set up a hydrogen safety panel with really 16 experts from the industry and the research, because since hydrogen now is so popular and everybody starts to work on hydrogen, it's important that we keep it safe, because if an accident happens, then so that could be a huge setback. That is why we have a big database now where all the incidents in Europe are reported in. It's a database which has more than 2,000 incidents. Our experts are looking into those incidents. They are basically analyzing it and share good practices, and you can download those reports from our website as well. But at the same time, they also help us to, if we feel like, okay, this is a project, but we are worried about the safety of the project, then they are going to deeply investigate the project and give some recommendations as well to the consortium. But also for you, if you want to use them in your projects, do not hesitate to contact them. Next slide, please. We do a lot of educational activities. I mean, we have 15 projects really to raise the awareness and then to teach regulators, but also first responders, technicians, PhDs, and so on about hydrogen. And we are happy to share all our learnings, but also the material. And next slide, because On the next slide, you can see that we have built this observatory, and in this observatory, there is one section that has education and training, and all the material is basically available there for free to be picked up. But also in this observatory, you can find, for example, good statistics if you want to know how many cars, how many buses, how many fuel cells are in Europe, or you want to learn about the policies and the regulations, about the codes and standards, patents, funding opportunities, everything is there. So feel free to look at it. I think it's worldwide the only free available source which has such a huge wealth of information for free. Next slide, please. And I think this is my final slide. We are organizing the second European Hydrogen Week by the end of the year at 29th of November to the 3rd of December, which will be at the same time also the official launch of the Clean Hydrogen Joint Undertaking. We have a lot of high-level speakers there. We have basically 5 commissioners there last year, 5 director generals, a lot of ministers from various countries. Basically, we had more than 10,000 people from 63 countries joining last year's session, and I can tell you this year's it will be even bigger. Okay, next slide, but that's only with my coordinates. So if you want to reach me, feel free to contact me. Thank you very much. And I'm open for the Q&A, and I saw there are a lot of Q&As, Q's, not yet the A's, they will come in a minute.
Thanks a lot, Bart. That was very inspiring, and I must say that synergies in case of hydrogen are not just a buzzword. I think this is really happening because it's really everywhere and every single part of economy, you can say, and there's a potential to be discovered. Okay, indeed, we have quite some questions. Most of them were asked before the event by participants. We will pass to them, of course, in a minute. But before that, and also I'm still encouraging participants now to put questions in the chat. I just wanted to say that in Poland, hydrogen is also becoming a bit of a buzzword, and it's still quite some. The interest in hydrogen is growing, and we can observe that. But I think it's still a long way to go, because also on the maps you've showed us not really that much of a Poland you can see. So there's a potential, but still I think to be unlocked. And from what I know from the research perspective, yeah, the potential is maybe not so big, but still there's something to be done. And NCBR, so National Center for Research and Development, is involved in quite some discussions with the Ministry of Climate, of course, and Environment, also research and basically this is an ongoing process. So we hope that we will be able to strengthen the potential over there. But at the moment, the spendings on hydrogen are not so high. We have more or less like 2% of everything that we spend on research innovation directed to hydrogen technologies. So not really that much. And the market is also not so mature, but there are some projects ongoing, and there's some really vivid discussion about what to do and how to do. And of course, we have companies like Solaris, for example, who are producing buses and who has a big interest in also other applications, but that's not enough, I think, for the whole country. And also we have some discussions about the valleys, about hydrogen valleys. There's one you mentioned in Pomorskie, but also there's further discussions ongoing to create new ones, and also NCBR is involved in these ones. So hopefully this will be on the agenda in Poland soon. Okay, I think I will now pass the floor to Bartek, so we can also hear a few words about our Polish hydrogen strategy and the works that are ongoing there. And in the meantime, I will look into questions, and then I will post them here. Bartek.
Hello, thank you, Eva, and thank you, Bart, for an extremely interesting presentation. Yes, indeed, we were intending to say a few words about Polish hydrogen strategy, but in the interest of time, actually, I will jump directly to the questions that actually appear, because I think that everyone here knows more or less what is the behind the draft hydrogen strategy in Poland. It's not adopted yet. It has been published at the beginning of this year. And now, after public consultation, the government is actually preparing the final draft, and it's about to be adopted in the autumn. So I suggest to leave it aside for the moment, but from the business perspective, actually, I have one basic question. Because building a market requires finding clients for new technologies. And at the initial stage, those technologies may be more expensive than traditional alternatives. And this is also true for hydrogen. Poland is 5th producer of hydrogen in the world, the 3rd in Europe. Of course, this is predominantly based on fossil fuels, as like everywhere else. And without a client willing to pay a bill, there is no market. And my question, and I think this is the question that the business is asking itself, how do you project lowering costs of new technologies in hydrogen and possibility of their scaling? And maybe to put it even more directly, when the cost of gray and green hydrogen will be more or less the same?
Okay, well, it's quite simple question to answer, actually. I mean, we have already today a possibility to produce or we will very soon have the cost of green hydrogen at the same cost of gray hydrogen. Not everywhere in Europe, though, but in some parts of Europe it is possible. You saw the last auction of the renewable energy or electricity in Portugal, 13 euro per megawatt hour. With this kind of costs, we can produce green hydrogen at the cost of 1.5 euro per kilo, which is the same cost of gray hydrogen. So we should not forget that 80% of the cost of hydrogen, 80%, that's 80%, comes from the renewable electricity cost. So yes, we can reduce the capex a little bit of the electrolyzer. Yes, we can try to remove some materials, but at the end, even if I make a huge effort to reduce maybe the cost of an electrolyzer to maybe 10% or 15% less, it will not have a big impact on the cost of hydrogen at the end. The biggest impact is the renewable electricity. So we need very cheap renewable electricity costs, okay? And this we find at the moment a lot in Southern Europe, Portugal, Spain, potentially also Greece. So I see that for those countries, they could have a very important role to play to supply Europe with cheap green hydrogen. Secondly, in addition, we also see a lot of cheap electricity, green electricity in other parts of the world being generated. Chile, for example, very cheap. So we will see the first imports of hydrogen in Europe within this year or maybe beginning of next year from Chile into Europe with this kind of prices. So yes, it cannot be done in Belgium, the Benelux, where I'm sitting now, because there it's 56 euro per megawatt hour. It's too expensive. I cannot sell exactly the number for Poland, but probably I guess it's very similar as where I am. So what we need to do is to reduce, let's say, this renewable electricity price ASAP, and also these parts of Europe. But also, I think Poland could start to think about importing. I mean, you have Gdansk, a very important industrial port. Why not importing also hydrogen from there? So as I said, so today already we can start to see the production of a very cheap green hydrogen. Not everywhere in Europe, but it will come. I will think that by 2024, 25, we will have on the market renewable hydrogen at the same price of gray hydrogen.
Okay, just a comment. Okay, thanks, Bart, of course. And we kick the ball a little bit to the camp of renewable energy sources, and this is a fair point. But yes, indeed, the access to this is not equal throughout Europe, and I'm aware this is a challenge. But thanks for your answer. Well, I don't want to, of course, monopolize the questions and answers session. So, Eva, over to you. You have a lot of questions from public audience.
Yes. Thanks a lot for this. Actually, one of the questions is already answered, so we can move to the next one. And the next one is about some more details about Clean Hydrogen Partnership and the regional component especially.
Yes, so as I mentioned is that we will have this stakeholders advisory group, and in that stakeholders advisory group, we will have a region kind of subgroup for the regions, where we will have a number of regions there who will advise us on the work program. But in addition, as I said, we will continue to work on these hydrogen valleys to create more hydrogen valleys across Europe. And this is always a region that needs to apply for us. This is crucial because we also want regional money to be spent in these hydrogen valleys, eventually nationally and European. So it's really a combination. But for us, it has to be a region. The region has to be convinced that hydrogen will bring jobs and growth in their region, and they are willing to invest in it. Because even if you have good companies that are willing to do something, if the region is not convinced yet, it's very difficult to establish a hydrogen valley. So there you really need this triple helix where everybody is working together to establish. And for me, this is how we will continue to work with regions. I mean, hydrogen valley, having them involved in our shaping of our work program. Regions are for us crucial, much even more important than national member states, because it's maybe very strange that I say that, but it's very important because the regions, the mayor, or the governors who are boss of the regions, they have to bring the solutions to the people. They need to show to the people, look, that's what we are doing. The national governments, they make policies, and that's good, but it's the regions who are really implementing and getting things done.
Okay, and we have a direct question linked to the valleys, since we are talking about the valleys. What's the legal definition of the hydrogen valley?
There is no legal definition. So what we said is, as I mentioned, is the sectoral integration approach. So for us, a hydrogen valley can not only be about showing 10 buses. No, that's not a valley. That's a demonstration project. What we want is really that you show that your whole energy system is connected with several sectors. So you need to produce locally your hydrogen, or you import it, you store it there, you do grid balances, you use it for heating and cooling, use it in your transport, for the industry. It really has to be like an ecosystem that you build. That's the definition. So it's not legally, it's just a definition. What will change now is that since hydrogen valleys became now so popular, is that I have started to think about making a kind of qualitative kind of definition, because very soon everybody will claim that they are a hydrogen valley, and then it's maybe, I mean, you start to lose the, let's say, the quality level. And that's why we will put now some definitions on when can you be a hydrogen valley, and we might start to issue kind of seals of a hydrogen valley, a seal that a region will get, and they can officially be called a hydrogen valley.
Okay, thank you. Next question is a bit more detailed, and it relates to different technologies for producing hydrogen and potential profit. So if you could relate to that.
In the next few years, which of the technologies for producing hydrogen can be the most profitable in CHP systems? So I'm not sure if I completely understand, but basically, I mean, again, depending very much on the location where you are, as I explained, but we can have cheap electrolyzers, but also reforming. I mean, I can imagine that Poland will produce a lot of blue hydrogen, so which could be also very cheap. Syngas is another possibility. Maybe there's not so much available at the beginning. Maybe it's a bit expensive still. But so everything, I mean, the three will be possible to be used in a CHP system. So it's very hard to say, depending a bit on the region,
Okay.
situation.
Okay, let's move to the next one. This is related to the aviation sector.
Now, burning hydrogen directly in a turbine will be a huge part of the decarbonization of aviation. So what we see is that for probably for regional flights, or I mean, probably a fuel cell could be enough. But then when you go up a bit higher with 100 passengers, 150 passengers, 4,000 kilometers, probably it will be a combination of turbines, which will have direct fuel injection, and a fuel cell then maybe for the more auxiliary part of the plane. So we know that, for example, Rolls-Royce is working very hard on the fuel injections. I mean, hydrogen injection in engines. So it will happen. It's a big part of it, of the plan.
Okay. The next one is some kind of a question seeking for an advice, rather.
I mean, I would like to learn a bit more on that one exactly. So maybe if the person who asked the question could maybe write me directly and maybe provide a bit more information on it. I mean, in general, we are welcome every new technology, and that's also why we are here to support new ways of production of hydrogen. And if this technology is very promising, for sure we will help to bring it forward. So maybe the person can just contact me afterwards and explain me a bit more deeply.
Okay, that's a great invitation. Thanks for that, on behalf of the person who asked. Another one. That's a bit about the applications.
Not sure exactly what it means, but in the different applications, I mean, if we look at transport, well, I mean, for us, what is now the big challenge for the transportation is go to the multi-megawatt scale. I mean, if we want to, for example, in aviation, we believe that we need to have 6 to 10 megawatt fuel cell, but with a very, let's say, which need to be very light and very dense as well. So that's for us the new challenge, is really to design such a kind of fuel cells. We will do that for the next 4 years. A lot of money will go into such a design. When we look, for example, to maritime, there we will see that we will have fuel cells using different type of fuels. For example, also ammonia fuel cells we will have. We are already at the multi-megawatt scale for maritime, but there we also need to start thinking about the bunkering. How do we bunker the hydrogen at the ports or at the side of the rivers? How do we do the refueling? So there is a bit of a challenge there. Trucks is really scaling up, really scaling up. We need to build to reduce the cost there of the fuel cell. It's quite expensive still. Then in terms of CHPs, well, hydrogen burners exist already. We will have to bring them also to scale. The turbines is something new, so we don't have yet the turbines available that can cope, for example, with 95 or 100% pure hydrogen burning. So that will be something we need to develop. On the what else? On the CHPs itself, I mean the smaller ones, the micro CHPs, or the commercial, like 40 kilowatt, 50 kilowatt versions, there we will have to move from natural gas towards pure hydrogen. So today, most of those applications use natural gas. They split the natural gas in CO2 and in hydrogen, and then the hydrogen is used. So in the future, they need to work directly on pure hydrogen. So that will be the challenge there.
Okay, thank you. 1 hour has passed, but if we still have some questions, and if you are all willing to stay with us for a few more minutes, I will allow myself to continue. So the next one is about piping.
both will be there. Separate piping, but also existing will be reconverted, which seems also to be very cost efficient. And also we will see blending. So for example, a 10% hydrogen in the existing natural gas grid. So it will really be a combination of everything. The pure 100% new hydrogen pipelines will be probably used to supply all the hydrogen to the ports or big industrial complexes, because they need pure hydrogen in big amounts, and then it makes sense often to put some new piping and for 100% pure hydrogen.
Okay, the next one is about safety issues related with oxygen as well.
On the safety, well, I mean, at the moment, I mean, hydrogen is not new. We are working decades already with hydrogen, and so the business area, they know very well about safety. There are plenty of, let's say, rules and standards available. Nevertheless, now, I mean, in the past it was always B2B. Now we go B2C. That's why we have this kind of safety panel also, to make sure that all the new players and that everything is how to say, is well aware about the rules and that we share the learnings. The mix with oxygen, I mean, in case of the electrolyzers, there are, of course, there you might have this kind of risk, but that's basically, there are a lot of backup systems or a kind of precaution systems built in the design of electrolyzer, that once there is a certain oxygen leakage being measured with the hydrogen, because there are those sensors, immediately the system go into a fail-safe mode. Also in transportations, above the tanks, you have always a hydrogen sensor, even inside the passenger compartment, you have also hydrogen sensors. So basically, it's really well managed, but of course, yeah, you always need to be careful. And how can we solve the lack of infrastructure? This is scaling up and investing. Yeah.
Okay, a few questions left. One of them is about the limitations in use.
The limitations of their use is, well, it depends on the application, of course. I mean, if you look to planes, I mean, of course, I mean, it's size. I mean, if you need a bigger size, I mean, there's maybe not so much space. In principle, I mean, there is basically not so huge limitation in size of fuel cells. You can go to multi-megawatt. Where does the limitation come from? It's from the fuel itself. It's on the hydrogen. So, for example, on planes, we will go only to these regional planes up to 4,000 kilometers. Why? Not because of the fuel cell, but just because we cannot take a lot of pure hydrogen with us, liquid hydrogen. We need big tanks in the back, and otherwise you need to rebuild completely your plane. Same for the maritime, for the ships. Basically, also there for the deep sea vessels. That's why we will probably go to ammonia or methanol, because we have not enough space to store all the pure hydrogen. So it's not really the fuel cells that limit, it's really the storage of your fuel.
Okay, since you're related to storage, we have also a question about the storage technologies.
Which hydrogen storage technology will dominate in the future? I think liquid hydrogen storage, definitely. Okay. This is where we will work on for the next 10 years now. Mm-hmm. It's new, but your density is much bigger than the gaseous. So we will have today the gaseous for a while, but it will go to liquid. Maybe not for cars, but for trucks, ships, aviation, for sure.
Okay, and one last question. I think it's a bit of a Polish challenge question. What do you think about this? About some switch from very traditional way of producing energy to hydrogen?
Look, for me, it's basically as simple. It's just a willingness to do it. I mean, we're working with a very carbon intensive region in Slovenia, which said, look, they are providing 30% of all the, I think, or no, it's even more. I think it's even 50% of all the energy in Slovenia is provided by coal. I mean, let's be honest. And they decided that, okay, it's not possible anymore to do that in the future with coal, and they selected hydrogen as one of the technologies to create jobs locally. And so that region will basically do three things. First of all, younger, let's say younger workers, retrain them, reskill them about hydrogen. Then part of the workforce will move to the tourism, because the region, they will invest a lot of to attract tourism to the region, so create there the jobs as well. And then the more older workers, they will go in a bit earlier retirement. So they really have made this kind of complete vision for their region to say, look, we know that carbon is not the future anymore. We need to prepare ourselves, and that's why they make this kind of plan with these three steps. And I love that very much because anyway, they keep the idea of we are the energy supplying region of the country, and that they will do with using the hydrogen, but they also know that they will need to diversify also the workforce. So I think it's a nice plan. It's about making the plan.
Yeah.
You can fight against it for a long time, and you can postpone, but at some point you will be faced with reality. And so I think it's important to be prepared, start making your plans. And I believe that hydrogen can be a huge it can be a huge contributor to keep the jobs and your view on being a energy supplier for Poland. But one thing I also learned is that if you are the last one to move, basically the cake has already taken quite a big part of it. And so being one of the front runners, I think has a lot of advantages. So that would be my message to Poland. Don't wait, start now.
Yeah.
Because you know the story of who moved my cheese. It's a very famous story, and suddenly the cheese might have been moved for Poland. And so if you don't want that to happen, I think it's time to act.
Okay, thanks a lot. I still have one, I hope, quick to answer question, and that will be very, very last one. What do you think, in your opinion, is the most promising technology to produce the green hydrogen at the moment?
Well, I mean, for us, there are different technologies, as I said, but we all know that by 2050 we need to achieve the carbon neutrality of the continent. And so the only technology that will be sustainable at the end is the green hydrogen production pathway. So that means it will be PEM electrolyzers or alkaline electrolyzers. Alkaline today is a little bit cheaper than PEM, has also some disadvantages. So you have to, depending on the application that you want to use it for. But electrolyzers is definitely the way forward. That being said, I'm convinced that blue hydrogen will play a role. Carbon capture and storage, we will have to use it for 10 years, 15 years, maybe something like that in the transition, because we need a lot of hydrogen. Just to give you a few numbers, today in Europe, we use 10 million tons of hydrogen today already every single year. 96% is gray. So by 2050, we will need to produce 70 million tons of hydrogen, which need to be green, you see? So we need to do ×7 in terms of volume, but also we need to from gray to green. So in that transition, it's impossible to do it only with pure green electricity we will need various types. We will need pyrolysis as well, the turquoise hydrogen. It will also be necessary. We will need the blue hydrogen. Probably also the yellow hydrogen will play a role as well in this. We should not be, be too stubborn and say, okay, now everything needs to be green from today until tomorrow. No, it will not work. It is a transition, and I believe that Poland can play a very, very important role in this transition.
thank you very much for this answer and giving some hope, let's say, and also in general for being with us, for your contribution, and also all the answers. And yeah, we will, I guess, stay in touch, and we also follow what's happening in Poland. And yeah, we hope that the development of those technologies will really be and a process that will develop itself, and the potential of Polish companies and regions as well, in that sense, will grow. Okay, so I think that's the time to close our event. It was a bit longer, but with so many questions, it was a bit of a huge challenge to keep the 1 hour. I hope it was informative for all of you as participants. If you have any following issues or questions, you can always contact us, and you will all receive the presentation of Bart after the event by email, so there's no problem with that. And thank you to all of you for being active during the event as well. And thanks to Bartek also for contributing from the business point of view. And well, I think that's it. And I hope to see you again at our next Brussels Talks events after the summer, obviously. So, and in the meantime, stay safe still and have some fun during summer vacation. So goodbye, everyone, and see you soon.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you.